Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose. The man who rules the world runs into the irresistible force of a man with nothing to lose in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get the regular and variant editions of John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose on Amazon.com today. When people look at a Bill Gates or a Mark Zuckerberg, they see a person who has tremendous success. However, when I take a critical examination of a Bill Gates or a Mark Zuckerberg, I see an individual who, while they have economic success, is clearly a failure in life. And the reason why they are a failure in life is because they are participating in the nerd paradigm. And the nerd paradigm is one where an individual, while they are book smart, they oftentimes lack skills in other areas. And because they lack skills in other areas, this is what leads to them being a failure in life, because it's their feelings of insecurity and inadequacy about themselves that leads to them going out here and destroying everything that they work for. Now, when it comes down to many who are these so-called nerds, yes, they are very smart people as related to a group of subject matter. And they can be very successful as related to that group of subject matter. However, they oftentimes don't like to work on their weaknesses, and because they don't like to work on their weaknesses, that's where they get this complex as related to power. Now, your nerd usually is an individual, yes, they again are very book smart, but while they are intellectually strong, they are oftentimes emotionally weak. And because they are emotionally weak, this is their Achilles heel. And that because they are emotionally weak, this is what makes them extremely vulnerable to becoming the target of what people call bullies. And these bullies oftentimes exert this physical power over them, because these individuals, because they are emotionally weak, do not know how to navigate through their emotions, and they don't know how to think critically in social situations, because your nerd will be able to think critically as related to a math problem or a computer problem, but they don't know how to think critically in a social problem. And because they don't know how to think critically in a social problem, this is what leads to them oftentimes dealing with public humiliation. And because, again, they don't know how to navigate through their emotions, they wind up getting publicly humiliated. And this is what leads to them having a major power issue. And that power issue comes not from the people attacking them, it comes from within the individual. And it becomes from within the nerd because he feels inadequate in the presence of others. And because he feels inadequate in the presence of others, he winds up giving away his power in social situations. And this is why many of your nerds become beta males, because they wind up looking to submit to people in social situations due to their feelings of inadequacy and insecurity in social situations, and they wind up looking to go into a hiding place in some cases when they run into people they are either find attractive, or they have character traits that make them appear to be bolder and stronger. And again, they come from this position of weakness, and what they do is they feel powerless in these situations, so they want to try to avoid dealing with people in these social situations. And when they do that, what they do is they give away their power, and that giving away of power is why these individuals have these serious power issues in their life. And these power issues oftentimes turn your nerd into his own worst enemy, because your nerd, when he gets any sort of power, he oftentimes goes out of his way to sabotage himself. Now, how does your nerd sabotage himself? It's because he does not see his own value, and subconsciously he doesn't believe that he is worth anything, so he will go out of his way to sabotage himself because he doesn't see a worth, in who he is. And your nerd, the big problem with him, again, is he doesn't see his own value, and he does things to, because he's insecure, he does things to try to make himself appear to be more valuable in social circles, like carrying attachments like expensive phones or wearing expensive clothes. But because he does not have any confidence, he doesn't have the same presence. And oftentimes, your nerd will overcompensate and try to do things to try to impress others. But what he does is lower his value because people do not see him as somebody they deserve to respect. And this is the big problem with the nerd paradigm, is he's always looking to follow behind others instead of looking to take the lead. And even though a Bill Gates or a Mark Zuckerberg will get tremendous success, they are always in the follower position, and because they put themselves in the follower position, this is why no one really respects these types of guys. And the reason why they don't respect them is the paradigm that they're following, where they don't see their own value, they put themselves in a secondary position, and they look for the attention and approval of others. And then once they get into the social circles with other people, they look to use their attachments in order to get power. And what the big problem with them using attachments to get power is, they think that people will value them for them, but what people are valuing is the attachments that they have. And oftentimes what they will do to get that power is try to give somebody something they believe is invaluable, like Bill Gates with Microsoft Windows or Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook. They will use this as an attachment to get power with people, and they will try to attach an emotional hose to people so that they will become codependent on them. And what that codependency is about them having that power over them because they are too insecure to form a relationship with another human being, because they fear that if another human being has more power than they have, they can go out of their way to bully them or intimidate them. So their whole life paradigm comes from a place of insecurity, and they need people to be in their life so they can feel secure about themselves, and they need people to be under them, most importantly, so that they can feel secure about their place in the world. And when it also comes down to your nerds, they have this major power issue, and this power issue is oftentimes the thing that is their undoing, because they don't value the people in their lives because they don't value themselves. And because they don't value the people in their lives, these are the guys who will do a lot of this social monkey branching. When the popular people start paying attention to them, they leave the friends who were there with them from day one and monkey branch over to the more popular people, and then abandon their friends. And in many cases, when they abandon their friends, they like to show their former friends their backside, showing us all why people don't want to deal with the nerd, because the nerd, oftentimes he will sit there and talk about how bad the jerk treats people. However, when he gets his power, he then treats the people who had his back and were looking out for him just as bad as the jerks were treating him. So the nerd paradigm oftentimes leads to this guy winding up having no friends, because he goes out of his way to alienate those friends, because he does not see value in people, and he sees value in things, and he likes to use things to get the attention of people so that he can have power over them. And what happens with that is they think because they have things, they have power, and a lot of times because they have things people want, they think that they can use that to gain leverage over people. And some people think that because they have money and attachments, they can use that power and to control and manipulate people. Unfortunately, many of your nerds wind up for the rudest of rude awakenings when what they find is they have alienated all of the people who would have cared about them as people, valued them as people, people who would have been friends, people who would have been wives, and even family members who loved them. They have alienated all of those people so they could go out here and get this power, but in many cases, they find out that it's very lonely at the top because they've pushed away all of the people who would have possibly cared about them in their quest to get this power. And in some cases, like in the case of your Bill Gates, I believe, you get these guys who get this God complex because they believe they have something that people need, and they try to use that attachment as a way to get leverage over those people to the point where they can get people to submit to their power. And they believe that if they get people to submit to their power, what they can do is finally get back at all of the people who did them wrong when they were younger, the people who bullied them when they were younger, and subconsciously get revenge on all of those individuals who they believe practically scorned them in the past. Unfortunately, it is the present, and when they go out here and show themselves in the present, we see that your nerd is no different than the jerks he complains about. And in fact, like the nice guy and the jerk, he is just another, he's the nice guy's side of the same coin as the so-called jerk. And the nerd paradigm oftentimes puts this guy into the nice guy phase. And what happens is when he's the nice guy, he oftentimes, yes, he's supposed to be this so-called smarter guy, but the big problem that alienates a lot of people is his arrogance and his sense of superiority and his really condescending attitude towards people. And all of these things are a part of this nerd paradigm that where these nerds, they think that because they have this book smart and this attachment to knowledge that makes them appear to be valuable, they think that that's what makes people valuable to other people, not understanding what people value in other people are intangibles as related to their values and their character. And sadly, your nerd paradigm oftentimes leaves many of these beta males out here left alone because oftentimes, instead of them attracting quality people to them, what they do is attract these predators out here. And after these predators gas up your nerds, tell them what they want to hear, and they wind up using them to get what they want out of life. And then once they get what they want out of life, they leave their bodies bitter and broke on the curb for the next predator to take advantage of and make soup out of the bones. So your nerd, yes, some of them have tremendous success economically, but as related to their values, their character, and their spirit, they are complete failures in life because, yes, these people have tremendous success as related to money, cars, houses, jewelry, but their spirits are miserable, and oftentimes when they get older, they look to make others miserable in their company. So the nerd paradigm, yes, they are oftentimes the smartest person in the room, but oftentimes they are oftentimes too smart for their own good because they don't want to go out here and do the work that will help them improve. And oftentimes, because they don't want to go through any sort of pain, they don't really grow. And because they don't want to work on those other aspects of themselves to improve themselves in their weak areas, yes, they wind up academically strong and intellectually strong, but oftentimes it's their social weaknesses that wind up becoming the Achilles heel that winds up bringing them down, either through a female predator getting them in a bad divorce, or they wind up alienating business partners or business entities that could help them expand their business, or if their business reaches a peak level, they wind up alienating smaller people who wind up leaving their company, and then eventually they wind up crashing. So a lot of times your nerds don't see how their life paradigm makes them their own worst enemy. And when you are your own worst enemy, the only person doing you in is you. And the nerd paradigm oftentimes makes guys their own worst enemy. And oftentimes, while they're so busy complaining about the other guy and looking to get power over the other guy, they can't see how they need to start putting in work on themselves and work towards improving themselves. Now, one of the big problem with the nerd, other part of his paradigm, is he's always chasing others and seeking their approval, or he's living in a world all by himself and not looking to connect with others who can show him his faults. And these are the two things that, again, are some of his great weaknesses, because he's always seeking other people's approval, which gives them power over him, or he lives in his own world where he's not looking to see or listen to others who possibly can show him these faults he needs to work on or ways to improve them. No, everybody is an enemy to a nerd, or they're a tool that they can use. And again, this is why they attract all of these predators out here who look to take advantage of them. So when I look at your nerd, and even though I see all of their so-called economic success, I see individuals who really have serious power issues, serious control issues, serious low self-esteem, and usually all of these things are the things that undermine your nerd and make it where while he has all of this success in life, ultimately becomes a great failure, because he's usually the one who does himself in, and he's usually the one who destroys everything he builds, because while he's, again, academically smart, he's socially inept. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my men's issues books like Stop Simping and The Man Crisis, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers this April, ISIS, the main event. It's carnage inside of a steel cage as the goddess next door steps in the squared circle against the beast from the falls in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, the main event, this April.